Trailblazer in this. Your company, you recently hosted a seminar for other corporations on adding Bitcoin to their balance sheets. What is the number one pitch that you made to them for why a corporation should have some of their treasury in Bitcoin?
Well, I think in the current monetary environment, cash is diluted to shareholder value. If you can't get a return risk-free in excess of 15% on your assets, you're not going to keep up with the rate of M2 monetary expansion. So the pitch in essence is convert a non-performing asset into the best performing asset. Bitcoin's been appreciating at 220% just about every year on average for the past 10 years. So there's nothing that's going to be more accretive to your shareholder value than to flip your non-performing cash into an accretive digital asset like Bitcoin.
And so the moves that you made here, Michael, over the past year, is this then a general assessment on your part and the folks who work for you that the dollar and its position right now in the world right now is going to continue down this trajectory? You're confident that that's going to be the case?
Well, I think the macroeconomic outlook is for monetary expansion in the range of 15% for the next 3, 4, 5 years. I think before March of 2020, we didn't feel that way. The money supply had been expanding at 5% for a decade. So in an expansionary monetary environment, you want scarce assets. And the scarcest asset in the world is Bitcoin. It's digital gold. It was designed and engineered to be the scarcest asset in the world.
Michael, of course, you had that Twitter conversation with Elon Musk, but when you're talking to other corporates looking to do this, are we talking of the scale of a Tesla? Everyone's now saying Apple's going to do it. Maybe they'll become an exchange, but are you seeing big companies wanting to follow your lead?
You know, we had a conference last week, and I expected a few thousand. We had 8,000 firms represented. The conversations went viral to 250,000 different people over YouTube. And my phone's been ringing off the hook. It's just, it's pretty amazing the degree of interest across the board, private companies, public companies, institutions, and the like.
So, you know, obviously, going back to that question, when Elon asked you at the end of the year, he's like, oh, are such transactions even possible? Talk to us about the mechanics of putting a lot of money into Bitcoin. How do you execute the trade? And then how do you store it and custody it in a way that sort of makes sense, whether it's, do you hold your keys? Do you trust it to a third party? How should companies think about that aspect of the challenge?
You know, there are institutional grade providers, and you either go the route of buying the Bitcoin, and you can do it with firms like Coinbase, or you go into a fund with Grayscale, or a firm like NYDIG, which does both. And generally, these are institutional grade providers. They'll do the trade, they'll acquire the asset, they'll custody it for you. Between their offering and the fact that we published a corporate playbook for Bitcoin acquisition, which will compress the multi-month process down to days, I think it's becoming substantially speedier and simpler for the typical corporation.
Yeah, we were speaking a little bit earlier with a big investor, Michael Novogratz, who basically congratulated you and called Elon Musk a genius for listening to you. While we were speaking to him, there was some news out of Miami that the mayor there is actually interested in adding Bitcoin or some type of cryptocurrency to that city's financial balance sheet. What do you think about the general idea of some of the governments themselves actually moving into this?
I think it's brilliant. State, municipal governments, they have a challenge. They've got balance sheets. They can raise capital, and if they can invest capital into an accretive asset like Bitcoin, which is appreciating dramatically against the dollar, that takes pressure off their taxpayers. It's good for everybody involved, and Francis Suarez is probably the most progressive mayor in the country right now.
Michael, the amount you've put to work, I believe it's about 3 billion or thereabouts into Bitcoin. We saw 1.5 billion done by Tesla. But when you hear of diversified play, do you think of a number? Do you think a corporate should have about 10% of its balance sheet within crypto? How do you think about it?
Well, you know, I can't imagine why anybody wouldn't want to invest at least 10% of their balance sheet in an asset which is going up in excess of 200% a year on average over the course of a decade. So I think that that's very straightforward, almost a no-brainer. I think that the more aggressive move is to convert most of your balance sheet into Bitcoin. This is part of a general trend toward digital transformation. Instead of digitally transforming your P&L, we're talking about digitally transforming your balance sheet and going from an analog asset like cash to a digital asset like Bitcoin. I think it's going to continue for the next decade because it's enormously accretive to shareholders.
And how much should companies be allocating to Dogecoin here?
Dogecoin is good fun for the industry, lots of good fun, but as a treasury reserve asset, I would steer people toward Bitcoin. It's digital gold, and it's the institutional grade safe haven asset of the 21st century.
All right, well, to build off of Joe's silly question with somewhat of a serious one, do you worry at all about sort of the Dogecoins of the world, maybe, I guess, dinging maybe the credibility of Bitcoin or Ethereum or some of the other more, I guess, legitimate, quote, currencies out there?
No, I mean, I think it's really primarily for entertainment value, and hundreds and hundreds of institutions and corporations that are looking at an inflation hedge and a digital asset. They're looking at Bitcoin very seriously. No one's seriously looking at Dogecoin. Just for fun.
Michael, for fun, of course, aside, it's interesting also that Elon has the capability of buying gold when he put it into, going more diversified. It wasn't just digital gold, but also real gold via ETFs or whatever. Is there a reason why you didn't want to go gold, or have you got that optionality within the convertible bonds issuance that you did?
We went through the same exercise and studied it. Gold peaked in August at the same time we bought Bitcoin. Yeah. If we bought gold instead of Bitcoin, we would be down $2 billion. It would have been a disaster. And yes, we considered why. Here's the reason we didn't buy gold. Because Bitcoin is digital gold, and Bitcoin is a better gold than gold. So once people start thinking about what they want, which is a non-sovereign safe haven store of value, they're going to realize that Bitcoin does the job of gold better. And you're seeing all of the institutional flows move out of gold into Bitcoin. Bitcoin is, going to be $1 trillion asset. It'll move to be a $10 trillion asset. It's going to demonetize gold. And so if you believe in that sort of asset, gold will be the loser as rational investors readjust their allocation from gold to Bitcoin to do the same thing.
Slightly wonder whether the Dogecoin, from Musk's point of view, is a bit of a joke. He's kind of alluded to the fact that it is. And as Riddick said, it's kind of an eclectic group that's backing it. My real question this morning is the penultimate story there, which was Tesla.
Yeah.
The use case obviously is really important because you can get a use case for Bitcoin, but I do slightly wonder, Elon Musk has been a key driver for Bitcoin, to excuse the pun, over the last few days and weeks. Now it's investing. I'd like to know what their entry point was here.
Well, sure, but, that's serious finance. I want to know if you knew how to say Dogecoin before the 25-year-olds on our staff told us and tutored us in the middle of the break. Did you? I did not.
Of course not. Don't be daft.
No.
No idea.
No idea. To your point, though, on when they got into Bitcoin, et cetera, I'm also interested in paying for a car with Bitcoin. Anecdotally, I have a goddaughter who's 27, and she wanted to buy an apartment with Bitcoin as a down payment, and the broker looked at her like she was insane. I think that conversation is going to happen really quickly, and Tesla and buying that is just a part of it.
Yeah, and I think this will only further spur central banks into digital currency.
What were you thinking?
I had a great start to the year. The chart looks parabolic. I mean, I kind of cut against my own rules when I said, don't short Elon Musk, and Tesla feels like Bitcoin, right? It's not even it's not a fundamental story anymore. And so any bit of good news is going to shoot it up. I'll give it a couple days, and I'll probably be able to get out of my shirt without that much pain, but. It was not a great morning.
Do you think it's going to back off $650?
It should back off some at one point. Like, things just don't go to the moon. But luckily, it was a spiritual position, and it's not going to bankrupt me. But it hurt.
What do you mean it's like Bitcoin?
Bubbles. And there's a Tesla bubble going on. There's no doubt about this as a bubble. Bubbles happen around things that normally change the world. Tesla is amazing. Tesla cars are amazing. He's got all kinds of technology. He's delivering. And so the story's so powerful, it sucks everybody in. It doesn't mean the company's actually worth that much. I mean, the market cap, GDP per car they sell is like $300,000, and it's $6,000 for every other automobile. Like, that doesn't make any sense in the long run. You're not going to grow in fast enough, but it doesn't mean the price can't keep going higher because it's such a great story. That's how bubbles work. And so I got cocky and tried to pick the top of a bubble, and I got a black eye.
So you were short on valuation, but you're not...
No, I was short on the chart and the psychology and felt like this could have been a blow-off, and I probably should have waited until after earnings, and you probably could have shorted it today for at least a trade. I wasn't going to short it for a long period of time.
You think it's a good company?
I think it's a great company. I have 2 Teslas, and
it's important to establish.
I love them. But I'm a gambler, and sometimes gambling, you burn your hands sometimes.
I should be clear as well, this is not a Galaxy Digital thing. This is in your personal account,
this is my
right?
PA.
Let's pull the lens back a little bit and look at the world at a macro level. What do you like? What don't you like?
Listen, I think first we got to get through this virus out of China, and it's getting worse. And so, I remember Paul Jones went on TV when it started. He said we shouldn't have any risk for 2 weeks. He was right. There's a lot of volatility around how bad this can get. We still don't know. And so, barring that, I think stocks are going to race higher this year. We have a very explosive mix of 5%, budget deficit of fiscal, low rates, the Fed on hold, lots of
central bank liquidity.
I mean, it's kind of crazy. 30-year bonds are trading this close to their all-time lows in an environment that doesn't feel distressed. And so that's telling you there's so much liquidity that people are going for it anywhere. These things end usually with an inflation spike. We don't see that coming. Or when valuation gets to extreme levels, and we're not there yet. And so to me, the charts look like stocks could go parabolic. I look at in Japan and Europe, which are playing catch-up. Nikkei takes out 24,000. It's going to be at 30,000 before you know it. The leaders here in the U.S. continuing to suck in capital, and it almost becomes the same thing. You divorce yourself from valuation.
Stocks were up 24% globally last year. Does parabolic mean another year like that?
Or higher into the election?
Wow. So in your PA, you're long stocks?
I'm long, and I've done it mostly through calls. Volatility is so cheap. If I'm wrong, it's not going to kill me. And so you can buy calls on the NASDAQ, calls on the S&P, calls on the Nikkei, calls on the DAX. And if that story plays out, great. The risk of that is either growth really slows or we get inflation, right? Neither seem, the former may be more likely. You can hedge that. You can pay, CDS credit spreads at 44, 45 basis points over. I still love gold. I still love Bitcoin because we've got too much liquidity around and we're debasing our currency over time with 5% GDP in a good economy. Put that in perspective. Last time we were at 3.5% unemployment and 3% growth, we had a 1.5% budget surplus. That's a 6.5% difference. This is crazy. And so you got to like gold and you got to like Bitcoin.
What brings the party to an end?
Parties usually end with Fed action. And so either inflation finally shows up post-election and the Fed's got to do something, or just valuation runs out. And that, you never know how high it goes.
What about political risk?
I'm sorry?
Political risk?
Listen, there is a risk that Bernie surges. I think you can trade that risk. He surges, market sells off, buy it. I don't think Bernie is going to become the president of the United States. Bernie and Elizabeth, bad for markets. Anyone else, good for markets. In some perverse way, the only person that I think might be bad for markets in the big picture could be Bloomberg, who's the only adult in the room. Because I think Mike Bloomberg, and I don't know, I'm not part of his campaign, but I just think of what a smart businessman would look at and say, we've got unsustainable fiscal and monetary, and so let's raise taxes and tighten the belt a little bit. And so the market probably would love him getting in and then say, wait a minute, the party's over.
Mike, the charts told you to short Tesla. What are the charts telling you to do on Bitcoin? It's up more than 30% year to date.
Listen, Bitcoin had its bubble in 17, and now it has become an asset. It's a weapon in people's portfolio. It is a version of gold. We call it digital gold. And we're putting in plumbing all around the system to allow more and more people to buy it. So it trades. It trades much, much better. It doesn't trade like we're in a speculative bubble. It's grinding higher. It jumps a little. It recovers. There seems to be a bid under the market. And so I'm thrilled the way it's trading this year. If it hadn't rallied during Iran, if it hadn't rallied during this virus, I'd have been nervous. But it did. And so I'm gaining confidence in the Bitcoin position.
Is Bitcoin the winner-take-all cryptocurrency?
I think Bitcoin is its own lane as digital gold, and by far will have the largest market cap. Listen, gold's got a $9 trillion market cap. The best companies in the world are $1 trillion, right? So store of value has got a unique, there are very few of them, right? There's nothing else like gold. The rest of the periodic table, from silver to copper and everything else, needs a use case. The other cryptocurrencies need a use case, and it's going to be a few years away. 3, 4, 5 years away before you really start seeing the blockchain ecosystem changing the world.
So you are steering clear of those other coins?
Because we're so close, we trade them. We don't have them as our core portfolio. We'll trade them both long and short. We're making big investments in the infrastructure around blockchain. I do think being in venture in this space makes a whole lot of sense. And so, you're seeing private permission blockchains in almost every area of the economy getting started. Some of these are test cases, some of these are starting to get used. You're seeing on the public blockchain decentralized finance showing up. This is all early stage. Remember, the internet bubble was 1999. We didn't get Facebook and the iPhone and movies until 2005, 6, and 7. And so we're in that gap period, but tons of stuff's being built, and it's an exciting space.
How big of a company and how big of a commitment do you need to see next to create another leg for this currency?
Well, listen, I think what you're missing a little bit is that, Elon Musk has done the best job of almost any CEO at creating shareholder value, right? Of creating a stock price that's driven high. One of the things that connect Bitcoin and Tesla and solar stocks and ESG investing is millennials and Gen Z. Young people are buying into the future, and they see cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin and other cryptos, as their currencies. And so Elon is a genius in that he realized, listen to the people. Put some of my balance sheet in there because he's worried about the dollar. Okay, that's a speculative bet. But it's more the messaging of what he's doing that's important, right? Soon to be allowing customers to buy in crypto. You're going to see every company in America do the same thing.
Well, it looks like it's not just companies that's thinking about this. You have Mayor Francis Suarez, Miami, thinking about adopting Bitcoin on its balance sheet, according to a tweet he had sent out today. How realistic is something like that, and are more cities likely to think about it?
Listen, there's a war for talent between companies and between cities, right? We've got this tax arbitrage going on where people move out of New York to Miami or to Austin, Texas. You've got cities fighting for the best human capital in the world. I love New York City. I'm a big New Yorker. I think we're going to continue to attract great human capital. But the Miami mayor is smart, right? Hey, we'll put some more Bitcoin on the balance sheet. It doesn't have to be a lot. It's the messaging that matters. And you're seeing the herd here, and it's coming. And I think, Michael Saylor did a conference. Michael Saylor of MicroStrategy did a conference last Thursday, and it was originally for 1,500 CFOs and COOs. There were like 10,000 people that logged on, and he took people through how he did it, how he bought it with his service providers. And the second day, he had guys like me talk about what our companies can do for people. And listen, my own stock price went way up afterwards, right? Like, people were listening. And so it wasn't one or two corporates, it was thousands of corporates logged on to learn about this. And so now you got the biggest, the wealthiest man in the world and one of the biggest stories doing it. You got to think other CFOs and CEOs are going to say, what should we be doing?
But Mike, you've also got Snoop Dogg, you've also got the Kiss bassist Gene Simmons, you've got Hertz, as you say, and in the last few weeks, month, Hertz haven't always been a safe bet, or indeed the right ride for certain retail investors in particular. How are you seeing the Dogecoin doing so well? Where does it get significant focus from the right people, and where is there a worry?
I think you got to be very worried about Dogecoin. I tweeted last night, I had 10,000 likes within a few hours on my tweet that I think, the frenzy around Dogecoin is bad. I'm surprised that Elon Musk has fun tweeting about it. I think it's a little irresponsible. Bitcoin is built with a purpose to be a store of value, right? There are 114 elements on the periodic table. Only gold has store of value. In crypto, Bitcoin is going to dominate store of value. Other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum have a real purpose. Ethereum is built as this global trust layer that things are going to be built on top of, right? This decentralized supercomputer, if you will. DeFi has a purpose. It's going to, if it could be a derivative trading or a decentralized insurance company or decentralized exchange. And so Dogecoin really doesn't have a purpose. It's a meme coin. It's a lot like GME. The people that buy Dogecoin are going to buy it at these levels are going to lose their money.
Mike, so when we talk about, I guess, the longer term outlook, not only for Bitcoin, but some of the, I guess, what you would call the more established crypto assets out there, there's a lot of talk that this is sort of the replacement for what in the old days would have been people, hoarding gold or hoarding silver. Is there a world in your mind that exists where we can continue to see appreciation in these crypto assets and also see an appreciation in precious metals?
Yeah, listen, I think if we had Chairman Powell here on the split screen, I'd blame him for all of it. Right? I mean, we have, and Lagarde today said, we're going to keep the money coming, baby, and we want the governments to keep the money coming. And so when you have this kind of monetary policy, people are going to find new ways to store value. Baseball cards, basketball cards, right? Collectibles are skyrocketing. I mean, you think crypto's, having big moves. You should see what the card market has done. And so you're going to continue to see other ways people hold value, appreciate.
Well,
Art, wine.
Well, let's talk about value here for a second then. Where should Bitcoin be in 6 months? Where should gold be in 6 months?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, listen, I originally thought Bitcoin would end the year at 50 or 60,000. Things are happening so much faster than I had predicted, right? The corporate adoption rate, the institutional adoption rate is accelerating beyond certainly what I had thought about. So now I think Bitcoin could end the year at $100,000. Listen, you don't grow forever because it takes a while to digest and new players to get involved. Old players will take profit at one level. And so I think 100,000 is a fine prediction for the end of the year. Gold probably goes back up from here and maybe ends the year at 15, 1600, 1700. Gold at Bitcoin at 10% of gold is 65,000 or something at that level. And so maybe we get to 15% of gold.
So last one for you here, because we had so much talk about the retail frenzy and people in the hedge fund industry getting burned. Would you go short in this market anymore? Or is this not a market made for that anymore?
Yeah, listen, I mean, my rule of thumb is don't go short things that haven't been squeezed. Like your classic, this is a crummy company, I wouldn't short it. But I would wait for these squeezes and I'd count 1,001, 1,002, 1,003, and then short. Like when you take companies without purpose to dumb valuations, those valuations can't sustain time. And they can't for two reasons. That people that are in them early get greedy and want their money to buy something else. They realize there's no value there. And the people that got in them late start losing money. So it's greed and gravity. And so almost every single one of those squeezes will end in tears. The Dogecoin squeeze, when they squeeze the XRP token, when they squeeze GameStop or AMC, all end in tears. I feel terrible for the retail guys that got sucked in right at the end, right? First guys were very smart, right? Understood weakness in the armor of the hedge funds, got involved, exploited it. But I think you got to be very careful of encouraging people to participate. And often the retail communities that get excited to participate, it's a recipe for losing money.